Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of The Surfer's Journey. Today's lesson is all about how to break down and how to perform a successful pop-up. It's how we go from our bellies to standing up and riding our very first wave on a surfboard. Now while the pop-up is very complicated with lots of moving parts happening all at once, I'm going to break down each of those moving parts into individual steps so you guys can understand exactly what you have to do and how to do it. And guys, if you're new to the channel, please subscribe now, so you can stay up to date with all of my latest videos and tutorials. And you can also follow The Surfer's Journey on Instagram. But for now, let's get into today's video. Let's start by breaking down and assessing the actual pop-up. So here you can see that I'm paddling into a wave, and I'm paddling as hard as I can, 100% effort. And it's really important that you don't stop paddling until you know that the wave's actually picked you up and is pushing you along. Many people cut this short, so I always recommend to paddle harder and for longer than you think you need to. Once you know the wave's pushing you along, put your hands underneath your chest flat on the board. You don't need to actually grab the rails. You can see my hands are flat on the deck of the board, just like they would be if you go and do a push-up. Next, you can see this big chest raise. Now once again, this is where a lot of people go wrong. They don't get this big chest raise, which makes it impossible for their legs to get through. Next, you can see that my weight has shifted onto my thighs. And at this point, I'm going to explosively go from my thighs to my feet in one smooth movement. Now, while some people can do this in a sloppy fashion where they might go back foot, front foot, or front foot, back foot, that is going to cause you grief later on. So it's better to get into one smooth movement from the get-go. Once your feet hit the deck, you can take your hands off and then stand up. And we're going to have a closer look at breaking down where to stand and how to stand a little bit later on. But regardless of if you're going straight on a wave and you're a beginner, or you're riding along a wave as an intermediate and above, the pop-up is always performed the same. I just want to say that the key is repetition, repetition, repetition. You've got to practice as many times as you can, and you're going to get it wrong initially, and you're probably going to get it wrong even once you start to get it right. But that's the key to success. As many opportunities as you can to stand up and practice that pop-up will get you there faster. And that's why I'm a massive advocate for practicing your pop-up on the beach before you actually go out into the surf. And this isn't just for your initial surf, it's even for your second, third, fourth, fifth, 10th, and even more. It's a good way to get your muscles firing and get into a good practice of what you're actually doing, an explosive pop-up with your feet landing in the right spot. When it comes to accessory moves for the pop-up, none is more important than your paddling position. You have to make sure you have a solid paddling position. That means not too far forward, not too far back, and not too far to the left or the right of a surfboard. And when you're paddling, make sure your legs are together. This will help engage your core, give you more stability. If you can get those things right, and you can only do that by practice and making sure that you spend time finding your perfect paddling position when there are no waves. It's much harder when you're trying to negotiate the waves to find that position. So I recommend practicing your paddling position when there are no waves, so that when there are waves, you're ready to go. Now there are a couple of ways that you can find that perfect position. One is to make sure that your chest is centered in the middle of the board, and you can use the stringer as a bit of a cheat way to know if you're there. Make sure the stringer goes straight through the middle of your chest. If you do that, you know you're centered. And the next thing to do is just make sure you're not too far forward or too far back. And you can only find that through practice and trial and error. The next thing to understand is your paddling speed and intensity. There are three main speeds at which a surfer paddles. The first one is what we spend most of the surf doing in a relaxed state, just paddling around and cruising at about 50% intensity. Next is about 80% intensity, and this is what we do when we're trying to get into position and get ready to catch a wave. And our third and final speed, which is almost maximal output, is sprint paddling. And that's what we do when we're just about to catch a wave. It's the best way to get into that wave successfully. If you're too weak and too lazy when you're paddling into a wave, you're not going to be able to catch it. Another important point to consider when we talk about catching waves is how much time you give yourself in preparation for that wave coming. As you can see here, I gave myself enough time to get into position, get on my board, and start paddling to generate speed and momentum to get into that wave. Some surfers leave it too late and they always fail. The wave will just go straight over the top of them. So give yourself more than enough time to start paddling. So now we understand how to catch waves and get to our feet. But where should our feet actually be once we stand up? Well, let's have a closer look at this. Now, once you actually get up and riding, it's no problem to actually change your feet position. You can see I've done that here. But what we're looking for is for your feet to be about shoulder width apart, and we want them to be centered in the middle of the board. So you can use the stringer once again to make sure your feet are in the middle of the board. By doing this, you'll be more stable. Also remember that you don't want to be too far forward or too far back. Too far forward and you'll nosedive, too far back and you'll put all the weight to the back of the board and you'll fall off the wave. So we know what our feet should do, but what should the rest of our body do once we're actually up and riding on a wave? You can see that I'm in a relaxed stance. My chest is upright, I'm slightly bent with my back leg slightly bent in. By doing that, it's going to help give me more control. Next, we need to talk about weight distribution, another area where many people get it wrong. Once you're up and riding, especially when you're going straight, you want most of your weight on that front foot. This is going to help you stay on the wave and go forward. Now, as time goes on and you're not riding whitewater anymore and you're surfing unbroken waves like this, you'll start to change that weight distribution, and that's how you turn, but that can come a little bit later. Another really important skill for surfers is to use their eyes. The basic principle is that where you look is where you go. And you can see here that wherever I'm looking, my board will follow. As long as I rotate and lean accordingly, everything will work together. And where you look also plays a massive part in your pop-up. Make sure that you're looking straight ahead. At this stage you want to go straight, so look straight. Most beginner surfers don't even think about where they're looking, and this is where they go wrong. So what you need to do is focus on looking straight and pointing straight once you get up and riding. And then once you're ready to progress your surfing, you can start looking along a wave. And then you can start to change where you look and where you rotate and where you lean to perform maneuvers.
Guys, thanks for watching the video today. I hope that if you've never surfed before and you're keen to get out there, that this video has outlined exactly what you need to do to pop up successfully on your surfboard. Remember to like the video and comment below to let me know what other videos you'd like to see. Thanks guys, I'll catch you in the water.
The Surfer's Journey now has a range of apparel available, from beanies to t-shirts to hats and coffee cups. For more information on how you can place your order, email thesurfersjourney@gmail.com.